Audiences seem to love a good spooky child movie. There's just something about a kid using the mask of innocence to hide their sadistic nature that keeps us coming back for more. The Bad Seed, The Omen, The Good Son. These psychological thrillers tell the twisted tales of murderous children who terrorize unsuspecting families in horrific ways. But as the saying goes, truth is often stranger than fiction. Today on Scream to Screen, we're going to open our homes to Orphan and the true story that inspired the movie. Before we do that, make sure you subscribe to Graveyard Shift and let us know in the comments which true-life horror stories you'd like us to cover in the future. Much like Joan of Arc, Klara Mauerova believed she was destined to fulfill a mission from God. This belief would propel her into a story that is so deeply bizarre that it is almost the quintessential manifestation of the idiom, truth is stranger than fiction. Klara's life would be considered normal by any traditional metric. She was married and had 2 sons, Andrei and Jacob. The family lived a seemingly happy life in the Czech Republic. However, just below the surface, a combination of untreated mental illness and an insidious cult would prove deadly. Despite her illness, Klara was said to be a good mother and was often seen playing with her 2 boys. She cared for them, tutored them, and loved them deeply. Initially, there were no signs of the horrific twists and turns that were lurking around the corner. Klara's behavior would vacillate widely. One day she was caring and nurturing, the next vindictive and spiteful, with a definite cruel streak. Eventually, Klara's husband could no longer deal with her bizarre behavior and left her. After the breakup, Klara and her sons moved in with her sister, Katerina. The sisters became friendly with a 33-year-old woman named Barbara Skrylova, an award-winning classical composer. Barbara had a glandular disease that made her look much younger than she really was. In fact, people often mistook her for a child, and Barbara used this to her advantage. Prone to getting into trouble with the law, Barbara often posed as a minor to avoid criminal charges. In fact, before coming to the Czech Republic from Scandinavia, Barbara had posed and eventually became legally recognized as a 13-year-old girl named Annika. Shortly after the 3 women met one another, they were lured into joining a religious cult known as the Grail Movement, led by Barbara's father. The cult promised that their members could get into heaven by doing good deeds. However, they also believed that any crimes they committed would be absolved by their God. The 3 women took this as a license to do harm to whomever they wished, and subsequently unleashed a barrage of abuse on 8-year-old Andrei and 9-year-old Jacob. The 2 boys were locked in a cage in the basement. They were starved, tortured, beaten, and sexually assaulted. The sadistic trio even kept the caged boys under video surveillance via a live feed baby monitor so they could revel in their suffering. But the baby monitor would be their undoing. In May of 2007, a neighbor purchased the same live feed baby monitor, and the unit happened to intercept a graphic video from the women's basement. The neighbor called police, who arrived at the scene and rescued the boys. They also rescued a young girl who identified herself as the brothers' 13-year-old sister, Annika. The brothers and the young girl were sent to a children's home before it was finally uncovered that Annika was actually Barbara in disguise. Before police could arrest her, Barbara fled to Norway, where she took up a new identity as a 13-year-old boy named Adam. While in Oslo, she shaved her head and enrolled in school where teachers believed him to be extremely gifted. 8 months later, Barbara was eventually tracked down by police and brought in on abuse charges. Barbara claimed that she was innocent and that she had been tortured by the sisters too, but the court didn't buy her claims. Barbara Skrylova was sentenced to 5 years in prison and has since been paroled, free to roam the globe as whoever she wishes to be. Inspired by the story from Norway, Orphan is a 2009 psychological horror film directed by Jaume Collet-Serra and written by David Leslie Johnson from a story by Alex Mace. The film stars Vera Farmiga, Peter Sarsgaard, Isabel Furman, CCH Pounder, and Jimmy Bennett. It centers around parents Kate and John Coleman, whose marriage is strained after the stillbirth of their 3rd child, Jessica. The couple decide to adopt a 9-year-old Russian girl, Esther, from the local orphanage. While their 5-year-old deaf daughter, Max, embraces Esther almost immediately, their 12-year-old son, Daniel, has some misgivings, and eventually other family members do too. Kate becomes suspicious of Esther when the young girl shows an adult understanding of sex. When Esther goes on to violently bully her classmates and harm small animals, Kate begins to wonder just who she has allowed into her house. The family is eventually led into a web of murder and deception when they discover they are at the mercy of a 33-year-old homicidal mental patient, not a 9-year-old girl. The film grossed $78 million worldwide against a $20 million budget and received mixed reviews from critics who praised its dark humor and scares but criticized its formulaic screenplay. The film's depiction of a murderous adoptee was not well received by adoption groups. Many of these advocacy groups said the film was harmful to the cause of finding loving homes for children in need. It was the impetus for a more than 4,000-member Facebook group called I Am Boycotting Warner Brothers' Orphan movie and sparked outrage from various Christian and other adoption groups who complained it promotes negative stereotypes about orphans. The controversy did prompt filmmakers to change a voiceover line in one of the early trailers from, "It must be difficult to love an adopted child as much as your own," to, "I don't think mommy likes me very much." Melissa Fay Green of the Daily Beast commented, quote, "The movie Orphan comes directly from this unexamined place in popular culture. Esther's shadowy past includes Eastern Europe. She appears normal and sweet, but quickly turns violent and cruel, especially toward her mother. These are cliches. This is the baggage with which we saddle abandoned, orphaned, or disabled children given a fresh start at family life," unquote. Filmmakers even added a pro-adoption public service message on the DVD release, advising viewers to consider adoption. In February 2020, development of a prequel film was announced, titled Esther, with William Brent Bell signed on to direct from a script by David Coggeshall. The project will be a joint venture between E1 and Dark Castle Entertainment. Alex Mace, Hal Sadoff, Ethan Irwin, and James Tomlinson will produce the film, with David Leslie Johnson as an executive producer. Production was set to begin summer 2020. In October 2020, Julia Stiles said she was about to start working on the film. In November, the title was changed to Orphan: First Kill, with Isabel Fuhrman returning to star in the film. The prequel, though, is not the only story to follow the original feature. Inspired by the film, another odd case cropped up, this time in Indiana. In 2010, in Indiana, Michael and Christine Barnett and their 3 children welcomed adopted 6-year-old Natalia into their home. The couple claims they were told the girl was from Ukraine and had a rare form of dwarfism. Michael Barnett says there were troubling signs not long after the adoption. She had an advanced vocabulary for a child, Mr. Barnett claimed, and there were signs that she had already begun menstruating. According to Mr. Barnett, things went from strange to dangerous, saying Natalia twice tried to kill his wife Christine, once by trying to shove her into an electrified fence, and another time by pouring cleaning fluid into Christine's coffee. Natalia admitted she wanted her new parents dead, he said, and told them she wanted to stab the family to death while they slept. After 2 years of living in fear and suspicion, Mr. Barnett came up with a plan to extricate his family from his violent adopted daughter. He reportedly had Natalia's birth year changed from 2003 to 1989, legally making her 21 years old. Then, he prepaid the rent on an apartment and signed her up for social welfare programs. Once everything was in place, he packed up his family and moved to Canada, leaving Natalia behind in Indiana. Mr. Barnett said he had no doubts that Natalia was completely capable of taking care of herself and that his priority was to help his son Jacob pursue his college studies. The couple says they left her behind because they feared for their safety and that of their 3 other children, including child prodigy Jacob, who's a physics genius. Jake Barnett's accomplishments, taking college courses at the age of 8 and doing paid scientific research at 12, earned him a profile on 60 Minutes in 2012. In 2014, the Barnetts were charged with 2 counts of felony neglect of a minor when Natalia reported to police that she'd been abandoned by her family. Christine Barnett still maintains that Natalia is a dangerous adult running a scam, while Michael, now divorced from Christine, claims the couple knew the entire time that Natalia was a child, but Christine convinced everyone to lie about her age. Natalia's age is still up for debate, and legal action is ongoing to reverse the changes the Barnetts made to her birth date. When asked about the case, Christine specifically referenced the 2009 film, saying, "The movie Orphan is exactly what happened to us." So what do you think? Was Natalia a dangerous, deranged adult masquerading as a child? What about the sadistic, free-to-roam Barbara Skrylova? Could she be disguising herself as a precocious orphan in some unsuspecting family's home now? Let us know in the comments below if you've got the guts. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to Graveyard Shift. And as always, check back next time to find out what else will make it from scream to screen.